I have found out that the Academy has become aware of me, and they have made the decision that next year I am going to choose all of the nominees and all of the winners. Even though I didn't quite understand what the theme was last night, other than the theme of watching movies, celebrating, loving movies, celebrating independent theater, which mostly came from Sean Baker and his multiple speeches because he won multiple times. Otherwise, looking back on the show, it felt kind of a little all over the place. There really wasn't a clear through line. The theme was Conan O'Brien. I did love Conan though. What I think the Oscars needs to fix, they need to fix the best song category, okay? It's do you want the best song nominees to perform at the Oscars or not? Are we going to do that or are we not? They had Wicked perform, even though Wicked wasn't nominated in the category because it's not an original song, but that was at least a representation from one of the films. But it's weird because then they don't have it from anybody else, so then it kind of feels like it's singling out Wicked. Look, the problem is that the nominees for best song all suck, except I loved Like a Bird. We've just run into this issue year after year where the nominees are not good. And I'm telling you too, I think Emilia Perez fucked a lot of things up. I think they were so freaked out by the Emilia Perez controversy that they made changes to the show that ultimately kind of made it more uneven. Just some really bizarre decisions that I swear came from not wanting to include Emilia Perez more than they needed to. Did you see Diane's threat that she'll be back? Diane Warren reflects on losing Best Original Song for the 16th time. I'm consistent as fuck. Okay, Diane, then pick an actual fucking good movie that is going to win this Oscar. Stop doing the same song in Netflix slop films that Academy voters are not watching. This isn't going to slow me down. I thought I had a chance this time. It didn't go that way, but I'm still here. Oh, Diane. Why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly. Yeah, sorry. Cannot believe they didn't do that and then lead into a mashup of Emilia Perez. Suddenly the raindrops that... When did they stop performing original song? This year. Man, it pains me seeing shots of Demi in the crowd and this is the beginning of the show and the sadness at the end of the show when she didn't win. Just you and I defying gravity. I like that the whole Wicked cast is just crying. It didn't really make sense thematically, but I don't care because I loved it. And I think that they're amazing. Even though the show overall lacked a theme that made sense, who cares? They were just great. If we're looking to trim the fat from the show and kind of make it a little bit snappier, the first award didn't come out until 30 minutes in. Yeah, I think there's places to cut. The speeches too, when you get to the big ones, I don't care as much if they go over. Unless you're Adrian Brody and you spend 5 minutes and 40 seconds talking. It is the longest speech since, I think, actually in Oscars history. And it's not an altogether exciting one. It was a lot of talking, but nothing that was memorable. His speech is longer and more painful than Emilia Perez. It just kept being boring. Brother, you had Cillian Murphy presenting your award and you made him stand up there for 5 minutes and 40 seconds. Give us something good. Let's watch Dan's vid here and I will jump in with my thoughts.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to my recap of the 97th Annual Academy Awards. That's right, another Oscar ceremony is behind us. Anora was the big winner at the Oscars. It was really just a Best Actor win away from sweeping the Big Five awards with wins for editing, original screenplay, director, actress, and Best Picture. Sean Baker actually tied a record that Walt Disney held for most Oscars won in a single night.
Next year, they are introducing the category of Best Casting. And had that category been at this year's Oscars, Sean Baker could have walked away with a fifth Oscar because he is the one who did the casting on the film.
The closest we really have is Bong Joon-ho. He won 3 Academy Awards for producing, writing, and directing Parasite. but he did not officially win the award for Best International Feature because that award goes to the country, not the director.
So I think that's another category that we need to change. A country can submit one film. And if that film wins, then the win goes to the country. So I'm Still Here, which won this year. The win doesn't get attributed to Walter Salles. It goes to the country because it's the country's formal submission. And so it goes to Brazil. Even though if it had gone to Walter Salles, it would have been Brazil still would have celebrated. It would have still been a, massive W and very exciting for Brazil. And the reason that they did this is because they wanted to prevent all 5 of the, nominees being from France. France was one that has always, just really is almost as long as the United States, had a massive film industry. So they wanted to keep it from it being and here's a film from France, and here's another French film, and here's another French film, and here's another French film. That's why they made it so that countries can only submit one film, and France actually has a tendency to submit not their best film. Never forgive France for not submitting Anatomy of a Fall or Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Yeah, French L after French L. I think that they should change it back so that international feature goes to the director of the film.
Movie theaters, especially independently owned theaters, are struggling, and it's up to us to support them.
The fucking irony of Sean Baker talking about independent cinema and going to the movie theaters, and that the Oscars were being streamed on Hulu, which meant that a lot of people watching the Oscars missed out on Best Actress and Best Picture because Hulu went down. The broadcast got fucked up.
Let's turn now to the Best Actress race, which was one.
He got me, and I'm so stupid. I'm bro, why didn't it do that for Adrian Brody's speech? It should have cut out and then come back in after his speech.
We weren't able to see the end of the show, which is kind of, important. Anyway, back to Mikey Madison. She did take the Oscar in the hotly contested Best.
Wait, I have to show you guys this clip. Okay. One thing that I've noticed is there's not as much star power there as there used to be. So obviously the people who are nominated, and there's a lot of A-listers who are nominated, they'll likely go to the show. The Oscars used to be Hollywood prom, where everybody who was a major star in Hollywood went. It was the place to be every year, and you would see them interacting at the show. There would always be the pictures afterwards at the fancy Vanity Fair party. One thing I've noticed is less and less major stars in Hollywood are going to the Oscars if they don't have a reason to. Well, also Christopher Nolan is filming The Odyssey, and half of Hollywood's biggest names are in that. So maybe that's why they weren't there. The other thing though that I noticed is that they saved all of their reaction shots for Best Actress, where it's oh, okay, now you're doing shots of the crowd and specifically of Demi Moore. So you're showing her after she has lost the award that she was pretty damn sure she was gonna win. That's what we call clip farming. I need you guys to see Jack Antonoff. Look at his reaction when Mikey Madison's name is called.
Mikey Madison.
He goes, oh, and then Demi.
Madison.
Clip farming, but not showing any clips. Yeah, that's another thing that we'll talk about. She openly was yes, I thought I was going to win, and I was incredibly disappointed that I didn't win. And I'm I think that should be normalized. I'm giving you full permission to be do it, okay? You lose the Oscar, you think you're going to win, be that's what I think that they should get to do. She should have reacted like Diane. You know what? You can always count on Diane Warren. You can always count on Diane Warren to give you what you need, except a song except a great song and a great movie. I need to see the breakdown. Okay, I want to know how close this was. Was this like 2 vote difference, or did Mikey just completely run away with the trophy? You know, you had the ingenue, the young actress in the more commercially appealing film, in the film that was just more entertaining to people, that I think more people watched, versus the veteran actress in a more controversial film, and one that you either love it or you hate it. The other thing is like Anora, Anora was from the beginning a film that always had momentum, even when that momentum seemed to have slowed down. Ultimately, it does come down to like, did you overall like the movie? Not just did you like the performance, but you hated everything else, or did you like do you like the actress? I think it's also just, I think that's what it was.
When we look at the biggest wins by distributor, Neon leads the way with 5, all 5 because of Anora. A24 comes in second place, another indie distributor with 3 wins. Those are all from The Brutalist. Netflix ties A24 with 3 wins. Universal had 2 wins, and Warner Brothers had 2 wins. So this really was a win for the indie distributors, having the most and tied for the second most wins of any of the big Hollywood studios. And as I mentioned, the 3 wins for A24 were for The Brutalist, which picked up 3 Oscars for Best Cinematography, Best Original Score, and as expected, Best Actor for Adrien Brody. Brody's 22-year gap between Best Actor wins is the second longest in history. Adrien Brody also set a record for most interminable Oscar acceptance speech, a speech that lasted, and I counted, 5 minutes and 37 seconds from the first word he spoke to the last word he spoke, and that doesn't even count the time it took for him to kiss Guy Pearce and throw his chewing gum at his wife. Most of this is on Adrien Brody because he seems to have forgotten that even though the moment of winning Best Actor is about him, the show itself is not about him.
Yeah, the show ain't about you, buddy.
Please, I'm wrapping up. I will wrap up. Please turn the music off. I've done this before. Thank you.
And part of what makes it even worse is that there were other winners that barely got a chance to speak.
Well, okay, I have some thoughts on Adrien Brody. So I think he's a great actor. Adrien Brody on an Oscars campaign trail is going to be serious. He's not going to have the goofiness of Timothée Chalamet. He's not going to have the kind of, I've been doing this a long time, making jokes about it, that like a Leo would do. As an actor, I do think he's incredibly talented, and I think he's got a real look that's like very 1970s. I am all for people in leading woman positions who do not look like traditional movie stars. However, what's interesting about him, and in his speech, he kind of was making the point that I am here. I won an Oscar 20 years ago. Now I'm back. With his performance in The Brutalist, was reminding people like, yes, I am an amazing actor and I am prolific and blah, 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 blah. But I just don't really understand this like Adrien Brody comeback thing or like underdog thing. He has now 2 Best Actor Oscars. And I think what's going to happen with someone like Timmy is I think Timmy might have a bit of a Leo DiCaprio path, where I think Timmy's going to have to like over and over again be in these great films and give great performances. And it's not going to be until he does something like, hides in the carcass of a bear that he finally gets his long overdue Oscar.
Overall, when we look at the total Oscar wins last night, Anora leads the pack with 5, followed by The Brutalist with 3, and then Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, and Wicked were the only other films to win multiple Oscars. They won 2.
It's kind of crazy that Emilia won more Oscars than Conclave. Conclave got 1
apiece. And when we look at the winning percentage among movies
that Dune Part 2 won the same amount of Oscars as fucking Emilia Perez.
Emilia Perez went 2.
Yeah, see, these are the kind of stats that I pay attention to, okay?
So let's talk about the show itself and what I thought of the production. Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo opened the Oscars, and I think that it was a good idea. This was close to what I thought they should do to really kind of capitalize on the Wicked hype. I thought that Conan's opening monologue was pretty good. He had a really good joke directed at Netflix.
Netflix leads all studios with an impressive 18, count them, 18 price increases.
And I really liked his bit about cutting to a disappointed John Lithgow if anybody's awards acceptance speech ran too.
Yeah, but it was like Chekhov's gun. I thought they were actually going to have a moment in the show where they do cut to John Lithgow. I just felt like we just need at least one moment. And I felt like they could have done it on the Emilia Perez songwriter's speech.
Too long. I just wish that policy had been
been
enforced, Adrian Brody. That Lithgow face, though, is going to be a meme.
They never would have done it.
I also like the bit
cowards.
where he chides Adam Sandler for not wearing appropriate attire at the Academy Awards.
My thoughts on Conan. I love Conan O'Brien. I think he did a great job. I thought he did a good mix of like, funny bits, his usual kind of, menacing style. He, he's pretty apolitical, but I think that was to be expected. I thought the few moments where he got some political zingers in were well written. I thought it was a mostly well written show. Yeah, I think he not only did what he needed to do, he was funny. He was entertaining. Conan O'Brien loves movies and he loves celebrating movies, and I think ultimately the Oscars is about that. Like, it should be about that. And I think like there's just been such a through line of this irony poisoned, very sardonic, satirical attitude. Can't we be nostalgic, and can't we be authentic and whimsical and genuine in appreciating film?
However, there were also some choices as far as what to put in the show that were interesting, because you didn't have the original song nominees. I said before that I think if you're not going to do those performances, this is probably the year to do it.
This is the guy who wrote the Kendrick Lamar joke, and bet our executive producer $50 that it would kill, just made $50. Always bet on yourself. Did Lisa lip sync? Let's see. Yes. Like she did.
But if this ever-changing world in which we're living.
Is that why she sounded the best? Yeah. So last night when I was like, oh, okay, I think I would vocally put Lisa and then Ray and then Doja. I watched it again and I did see people online being like, she's lip syncing and this is something that she does. I do feel like I have to ding her on not actually singing. And I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? Why are we having people perform at the Oscars who are not connected to the Oscars and also aren't singing? Anyway, I'm going to move on, but before I have K-pop stans sending me death threats, please don't. If it's a concert, I don't really give a shit because I don't go to K-pop concerts. But like for the Oscars, please have people who are going to be performing live.
Maybe Jeff Bezos slid him $5 million under the table to keep plugging the franchise. I don't know. It just seemed like odd timing. But also, why this? I mean, you took 8.5 minutes of a show to celebrate a franchise that's currently in creative turnaround with a dance number straight out of the Oscars in the 1970s and 3 songs that were not performed by their original artists. I mean, sure, 2 of the artists, Paul McCartney.
Yeah, like if they brought out Adele, and I say this as someone who thinks Ray is super talented, if they brought out Adele to do Skyfall, I'm like, all right, fuck yeah.
Shirley Bassey in their 80s, maybe they don't want to come back and do a performance on the Oscars, but you have Skyfall not sung by Adele. All of it is more strange, given the fact that you had winners, multiple winners, who didn't have a whole lot of time to speak, and you...
Yes, I agree, all right? So, I love a performance, all right? But if you're going to do something that really is not connected to the Oscars and is kind of just, why are we doing this? And it takes up as much time as it does, I think you cut it. And I think you make it more about the winners, right? You make it more about the show.
The show also spent over 5 minutes on a tribute to Quincy Jones, who is absolutely a music legend, but also never won a competitive Oscar. I mean, I like Queen Latifah. It was a very enthusiastic rendition of Ease on Down the Road, but it just felt a little odd.
Well, and I think people also were sensitive about the fact that Michelle Trachtenberg was just left out of the in memoriam. Why is there a whole tribute to Quincy Jones, blah, blah, blah. But it was more of that. Michelle was just totally ignored. I mean, there were other people who were ignored, like Trust, that I would put Tony Todd in there. Trust. Shannon Doherty also wasn't a part of the in memoriam. I think people were especially sensitive because Michelle had just died and it just happened. It's also the fact that it just happened. Gene Hackman's happened after, and of course they did a whole thing for Gene, as they should have. Every year there are people who are left out of the in memoriam that is upsetting, and it's usually because they just were not actors that had a crossover with Academy nominated films.
But it seemed odd for the Oscars to single Jones out, but also not to do extended in memoriam segments for others. I mean, there was a little bit for Gene Hackman. Morgan Freeman came out and said something, but there's next to nothing really for David Lynch other than him being in the in memoriam video itself.
And Isabella Rossellini, who wore a blue velvet dress to honor David Lynch. And she was, of course, in his film Blue Velvet.
And it just seems weird to kind of hand select one or two people and not give what I think is equal time to others who left a cinematic legacy, I think, as large as Quincy Jones, just in a different field. At least.
Wait, Bernard Hill wasn't in the in memoriam? What the fuck? That's actually, okay, that's crazy too. What? They left out Bernard Hill. Okay, I need to have a word. You know what? I'm going to be in charge of the in memoriam from now on. I'm in charge. Don't you guys worry. Cut out the Bond thing and spend more time on the in memoriam. Here's a show where we are honoring movies, where we are honoring the industry. And it's like, we do this in memoriam section every year to honor the greats who have come and gone, you know, who left a legacy. Spend more time on it.
The in memoriam section itself was better than it has been, with a constant focus on showing and showcasing the work of those who passed on, although poor Shelley Duvall literally had the curtain pulled over her during her video clip. The Oscars also brought the 5 people talk about the nominees structure, although this time it was in a couple of the technical categories. It was for Best Costume Design and Best Cinematography. I'm not a big fan of this whole thing, but if you're going to do it, I think that this made a little bit of sense because at least you're using actors who'd worked with each one of the nominated artists and could provide. I
actually like this. This is one of my faves from the show. I love how much care they gave to categories like costume design. It's just like, so the show was just uneven in that, okay, so we had one category, you know, some categories where they did this and I'm like, great. And then others where it's like, why the fuck did you do that? And then it's like, we did the clips for actor and actress. It needs more. It needs more of an even structure.
Robert Downey Jr. and Da'Vine Joy Randolph also offered kind words to each of the supporting nominees, which was okay, but it meant that we saw none of their actual work on the telecast. Luckily, we did get clips for the lead actor and lead actress performances. The other presenters during the show, I think, were pretty standard. I did love the banter between Scarlett Johansson and National Treasure June Squibb.
They were fabulous.
And I'm actually being played by Bill Skarsgård right now.
And Ben Stiller proved once again that he is more than willing to go the extra mile to make a presenter bit that's actually funny.
Here are the nominees for production design.
I'd say that the presenter banner was above average, but really the thing that caught my attention the most all night was when they announced that there was going to be a Jaws exhibition at the Academy Museum. This is my actual reaction when I was watching the show and they announced it. It was maybe the most transfixed that I was all night. So I talked about the highlights, I've talked about the show. Let's talk about some of the speeches and winners that I haven't referenced yet. First of all, Kieran Culkin won Best Supporting Actor as expected and immediately swore on live television.
I should thank my mom and Steve for trying to raise me. You're really good people. You gave it your best shot. I love you, Mom.
And I also really like the story that he told about his wife unwittingly making a deal with him to have a 4th child.
She said,
it was very Kieran. The part about like the kids and his wife, it was kind of like weird, but also endearing. And all of it felt very Kieran. It felt very Kieran. I do hope that his wife was like okay with it. I don't know their relationship. She married Kieran Culkin, so you got to know he's going to be the way that he is. It felt pretty on brand.
I will give you 4 when you win an Oscar.
Flo pulled off what I think could be.
The only reason why I'm like, I hope she was okay with it was because she was not happy after his Emmy speech when he brought up the kid thing. And that's why he's like, okay, I haven't mentioned this since then.
This is the second consecutive year that a smaller international feature has upset
this
a
is one of my
big Hollywood studio
favorite
film
wins
that
of
in
the
any other
night.
year would have won the
Yes.
Academy Award. Last year it was The Boy and the Heron. This year it was Flo. This is also only the third time that an international film has won Best Animated Feature, and the first time that that movie wasn't a Studio Ghibli film. This was a big night for Latvia, so
Yes.
congratulations to Latvia on a big Academy Award win.
Also, I think that this is a good sign of creative change. I think that animation is moving in a direction that's very exciting. And we're moving away from American animated films and American animated films that are like massive budget, heavy hitter type films where you've got just the biggest studios behind them. Wild Robot and Inside Out 2, which was the highest grossing film of 2024. A little film that was under $4 million, that had no dialogue, that was made using film editing software. Like, it was edited with software that like anybody can download and yeah, Blender. I mean, it's remarkable. It's really remarkable.
The Only Girl in the Orchestra won for documentary short. I thought it was a good short, but it wasn't one of my favorites of the 5. I'm Not a Robot won for best live action short, which I thought had a good premise, but it didn't really pay off for me. And In the Shadow of the Cypress won for best animated short. And while I thought the animation was beautiful in that one, as far as overall impact, it wasn't really in my top 2 or 3. I am happy that the filmmakers in that category were able to make it from Iran to be there to accept their award. Apparently they landed just hours before the ceremony. I did think it was kind of weird that the guy just kind of snatched the phone away from his other filmmaker and then started their speech over because she wasn't saying it right.
Miracle, you have
no.
Oh my God.
Let me
Yeah.
read it myself.
Paul Tazewell became the first black man to win an Oscar for Best Costume Design for Wicked, so kudos to him. And Wicked also took the
loved
award for
Paul's
Best
speech.
Production Design. In his speech for Best Original Screenplay, Sean Baker thanked the sex worker community, which, let's be honest, plenty of other Oscar winners have probably also wanted to thank the sex worker community, but for very different reasons. Peter Strawn, as expected, won the Oscar for Best Adapted
Dan.
Screenplay for Conclave, and The Substance won for Best Makeup and Hairstyling. And can I just
Okay, Dad's doing jokes.
point out how happy I am that makeup, as disgusting as what you saw in The Substance, and I mean that as a compliment, was actually able to take home the Oscar. I mean, I think The Substance might be the grossest movie to ever take that award. At the very least, I think The Fly is getting a run for its money. And while I have no doubt that the controversy around Emilia Perez cost it at least 1 or 2 awards last night, it did not cost Zoe Saldana her win. And listen, I'm happy for her. I think that she was good in the movie. I think she's had an underrated career. Honestly, her speeches have been a little bit too much for me this award season. But in light of Adrian Brody's speech, my criteria for what constitutes a little much when it comes to award speeches has definitely been permanently adjusted towards his end of the dial.
Okay, here's my thing with Zoe. The speeches that she's been giving are all very emotional, where she's crying and shaking and like can't breathe and blah, blah, blah. And after a whole season of that, you're kind of like, all right, enough. Now, especially given the film that she won for and that she won all season long for, the emotion feels a little disingenuous when none of that emotion was directed at feeling emotional because you're talking about how we need to stand up for the trans community, or like, you know, we need to talk about the families that have lost so many loved ones to violence. Or it just was a speech filled with emotion and being like, I'm the first Dominican Republican woman, where it was a very like, this is about me and it has nothing to do really with the film. You know, that movie is ass. It's like, okay, yeah, you're gonna have to do some heavy lifting to like make a speech that is that is praising this film that is such ass. It would have been nice to get something that related to what you claim are very important themes in this film, very important, you know, issues that comprise this fuck ass movie.
A lot of things has been said about the movie, about trans people, about empowering women, but less has been said about Mexico, which is the heart of it.
First of all, I'm very, very sorry that you and so many Mexicans felt offended. That was never our intention. We spoke and we came from a place of love, and I will stand by that. I don't share your opinion. For me, the heart of this movie was not Mexico. We weren't making a film about a country. We were making a film about 4 women.
No. And here's why no. So much of this film is set in Mexico. But it's not just set in Mexico. It utilizes like Mexican politics and issues happening in Mexico, like the cartel violence, okay? And how Emilia has this great change in her character because she goes from the cartel leader to wanting to help the families whose loved ones have been murdered and disappeared by the cartel. Utilizes Mexican trauma. Yes! What are you talking about? This isn't just like 4 friends hanging out in Mexico where like, okay, Mexico's the setting, but this could have been set anywhere else. And like specificities about Mexico and Mexican culture are not at all to be found in this film because it's just 4 gals who like, I don't know, it's like a character drama. Yeah, context, girl, location is context.
And these women could have been Russian, could have been Dominican, could have been Black from Detroit, could have been from Israel, could have been from Gaza. And these women are still very universal women that are struggling every day at trying to survive systemic oppression and trying to find their most authentic voices. So I will stand by that. But I'm also always open to sit down with all of my Mexican brothers and sisters and with love and respect, having a great conversation on how Emilia could have been done better. I have no problem. I welcome it.
Girl, what? No, this was not a film where you could just interchange these women being like Israeli or Palestinian. No, that's a whole ass other movie. What are you doing? This question has been raised throughout the whole fucking award season. They have prepared to answer questions like this. This is not the first time that a reporter or somebody, you know, who's not glazing the film brings up the valid criticisms of the films. She did not stumble over a single word because that was a prepared ass answer. You love feedback like it's done, okay? It's done. And I hope that like we never talk about Emilia Perez again, even though I know I'll bring it up.
Also won Best Original Song for El Mal, a song that I don't particularly care for. And in light of all the controversy around Emilia Perez, I think that its win in the Best Original Song category proves conclusively that the Academy will never, ever give Diane Warren an Oscar.
This was one of the worst moments of the night.
And thank you to Emilia.
He kind of goes, oh, okay, and starts awkwardly joining her. No, and then they start playing the music, okay? And they take this as a sign to like, let's sing with the music. My problem with the show is that they didn't give us audience shots. You need to fucking cut to the audience when something like that is happening. All right, I need to see Ray Fiennes. That was one of the most what the fuck moments of the night, and we were so deprived of audience reactions, okay? Give me Ariana Grande being like,
I'm Still Here ended up winning Best International Film. This is the first time that Brazil has ever won the Oscar for Best International / Foreign Language Film. I thought that I'm Still Here was a really good movie, and I didn't realize that I was actively rooting against Emilia Perez until the category came up, and I think it got the only fist pump of the night from me. Finally, if we're talking about winners, I think we have to talk about the Best Documentary category. In my Oscar pick show, I cast doubt on whether the Academy would be willing to give the award to No Other Lands, despite the fact that I thought it was a fantastic documentary.
This is the big moment of the night.
Thank you to the Academy for the award. It's such a big honor for the 4 of us.
Some people not even clapping. You know, it's no secret that the topic of Israel and Palestine in an industry like Hollywood is one that is very contentious. And I just read that piece in The Nation the other night about how the repercussions against those in the industry who are vocally pro-Palestinian, that those repercussions are no longer happening out in the open. Like when we saw Susan Sarandon and Melissa Barbaro be fired from their agencies, Melissa was dropped from Scream. It is something that is still happening. It's just happening behind closed doors. And it's harder to know when someone is facing the consequences, because in an industry like Hollywood, which it's so competitive, there is fear of standing up to the Trump administration, to calling out fascism, and there's fear of criticizing the state of Israel.
About 2 months ago, I became a father, and my hope to my daughter that she will not have to live the same life I'm living now, always fearing settlers' violence, home demolitions, and forest spill displacements that my community, Masafir Yatta, is living and facing every day under the Israeli occupation. No other land reflect the harsh reality that we have been enduring for decades and still persist, as we call on the world to take serious actions to stop the injustice and to stop the ethnic cleansing of Palestinian people.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I just a huge heartfelt congratulations to the team, and especially Basel, who has been documenting since, he first had a camera put in his hands.
We made this film, Palestinians and Israelis, because together our voices are stronger. We see each other. The atrocious destruction of Gaza and its people, which must end. The Israeli hostages brutally taken in the crime of October 7th, which must be freed. When I look at Basel, I see my brother, but we are unequal. We live in a regime where I am free under civilian law, and Basel is under military laws that destroy his life and he cannot control. There is a different path, a political solution without ethnic supremacy, with national rights for both of our people. And I have to say, as I am here, the foreign policy in this country is helping to block this path. And,
I think there's some really important things that Yuval did in his speech here too. And, in no way am I praising the Israeli, the kind-hearted Israeli filmmaker over the Palestinian whose people are being, brutalized. But he explicitly, here's the thing too. The reality is that Basel has to be more careful in what he says. He can't explicitly call out the US government, right? They absolutely planned this out before they went up on stage. Just like every single time they have had any media appearance, you best believe that they have designated who says what.
It's not too late for life, for the living. There is no other way. Thank you. Rachel Shore, Hamdan Balal, Sigal Yehuda, Close Up Initiative, Ani Fabini, thank you.
Do I think that the show won over any new fans or convinced anyone to come back to the telecast? Not necessarily, but I'm curious to see.
Am I the only one who enjoyed the Wonder Woman movies? Maybe there's something wrong with me. Anybody got that one clip?
Max Lord, you're putting yourself and everyone else in great
face. What is this?
Danger. I need you to give me the stone. What happened to it?
But what did you think? What were your favorite parts of the ceremony? What were your least favorite parts? Who do you wish had won?
Well, that was a 30-minute video that I spent hours on because I had a lot of thoughts. Yes, I paused the hell out of that thing. I'm here for the chaos. I can't get over Adrian Brody breaking the record for longest ever Oscar acceptance speech, saying so much without saying anything at all.